Welcome, everybody, and happy Monday, bon lundi, happy sunny Monday morning. I hope you are all well. I'm McGirl, I'm the co-founder of Changemakerxchange, and I'm your moderator for the next 75 minutes. So, right, first, I want a quick show of hands. Who in the room has recently felt a little paralyzed with everything going on in the world? War after war, crazy AI, climate backlash. Who has felt paralyzed? Have a look around. Almost everyone. And we want to change that today. Quick thing before we start. I will ask the people on the front rows now, just the front rows, and by my calculations, that is about 3.5% of the room. Front rows, I want you to wave your hands in the air and clap. Do it, just the front rows, yeah, okay. Nice. Now, other people, thanks, you're really getting into it, I like it. Other people, you may think they're just the crazy people at the front, but research has shown that when you mobilize 3.5% of the population and in a non-violent act, then change follows. And today we're going to see people who are mobilizing at this kind of scale. First up, a real legend of the stage at Change Now, I think needs no introduction. Climate justice activist, best-selling author, and personally, I think one of the most honest and refreshing voices in the space right now. I'd like you to give big Change Now welcome to Luisa Neubauer. Welcome.
Thank you so much. This is really kind. I'm really happy and honored to be back in Change Now. To talk about something I did for the first time this year, ever in my life. I spent 1 month on a tiny sailing vessel in Antarctica. And I know now that most people, even if they pretend otherwise, don't actually know which one is Antarctica. So to clear up with that confusion, Antarctica is down there. It's in the south. It's a continent that is larger than the entire continent of Europe. And it stores 90% of our global ice that we got. We were 13 people on a tiny sailing ship called Malizia Explorer. We were sailors, we were activists, we were artists, and we were scientists. It was January in Antarctica, so imagine the sun would never set. To get from the south of Argentina to Antarctica, you have to cross the Drake Passage, which is considered one of the most extreme oceans in the world. Meaning, for 4 days and nights straight, you got the waves crashing onto you. What did make it bearable was the fact that we weren't alone. When sailing to Antarctica, there were the penguins around us, the whales, the dolphins, the birds on the sky. It was close to romantic if you ignore the part where some of us, including myself, had to throw up nonstop during that. And somewhere between those bunk beds and cracking glaciers, I realized that maybe it was that 1 month in Antarctica that taught me more about collective action than 7 years of my climate activism before. So here we are, presenting to you 3 penguin-inspired lessons I brought from Antarctica about the magic of collective action. Number 1, don't ask for the hype. As we sailed south, I realized I'd always talk about sea level rise and climate and how it's really dangerous. I had never really considered what makes sea level rise. I'd never considered the role of Antarctica in our everyday life. It is just because all of that ice stored on that continent that we are not drowning right now. If Antarctica was to melt, the sea level worldwide would rise up by 60 meters. And yet I had never asked about that. And more crucially, when arriving in Antarctica, I realized even though this really dire and extreme ecosystem is full of ice on first sight, it is one of the most intact and healthy ecosystems we see anywhere on the planet. Why is that? Because during the Cold War, when nations around the world claimed Antarctica from themselves, interested in the mining and the industry and in the capitalization of the resources there, a movement of explorers, sailors, scientists, and activists from all of the conflicting nations got together to build pressure for what is called the Antarctic Treaty. It is a unique multilateral agreement that until this day protects Antarctica, making it the single continent on this globe where there is no industrial mining, where there aren't even borders. Today, this sounds like a tale from a different world. And yet, as we sailed to Antarctica, we were surrounded by the long-lasting effects of that very vision. We walked on the paths of those who rooted for this handmade, for this unprecedented piece of collective action. And if with so many of these historic wins that shape our everyday life, it is so easy to consider them positive accidents, to consider them once-in-a-lifetime miracles, and things that could never, ever be happening again in today's world. Why does it matter for here, us, in Paris? I spent the last 7 years building the largest climate movement of Germany. We were part of this global wave of collective action in 2019 and after. We organized unions and churches and farmers. We sued our government so hard, it changed the legal understanding of climate justice. And on one day in September 2019, we brought 1.4 million people on the streets for climate justice. So today, people again ask me, oh, was this a once-in-a-lifetime miracle, something that can never happen again? Or they ask me, how do we get exactly that back again? How can we remake 2019 in terms of climate? And I understand the question. It's just not the right question to ask. More importantly, the question in the room is, what conditions made it possible to get to such momentum in the first place? More precisely, what were the people doing before the unlikely change? What were the people doing in the absence of a miracle, when radical change wasn't even considered possible at all? So instead of thinking about 2019, I want to invite you to think about 2017, about the time when clearly a momentum was possible, yet not in sight. And imagine back then, 2017, Trump was in office, had immediately left the Paris Agreement. Climate was pushed aside everywhere. Europe was talking about migration. And yet people were already building a momentum that they didn't even know about. And this, for me, is the first crucial part of collective action. Momentum cannot be ordered. What we can do, however, is make it more likely to appear. This means thinking about conditions of change instead of single moments of change. And in Paris and in Antarctica alike, this means looking behind the curtain of this miracle. This perspective is uncomfortable, as it means there won't be that one movement, that one party, or even that one company that fixes things for us. It means that we depend on people we don't usually agree with. It means there is no quick fix, but a formation to consider. And a formation that can possibly, but never guaranteed, bring us forward. So rooting for a future that isn't here yet, thinking in collaborative formations and mutual empowerment that is disruptive in times when every single project proposal we write, every strategy plan, and even our running watches tell us that something we can't precisely count and, most importantly, track is worthless. So how to apply formations thinking in these dark times today? I invite you to pretend for just a moment that in 2029, democratic parties, climate movements, and renewables will win. big time. Autocrats will stumble, billionaires will pay taxes, and democracies will run on wind and solar. Having that in mind, that quick vision of 2029, now ask yourself, where would you want to be today? If that were supposed, guaranteed to happen, what would you do? Where would you, and for whom would you show up? Is that easy? No, because the moment that you present any answer to that, someone will come along and tell you that rooting for unlikely and positive change is naive, especially today, because after all, cynicism is winning elections today. Cynicism here brands itself as realistic, as even stylish. And again, I invite you to consider cynicism here, not as a realistic assessment, but as an ideology. As an ideology that expects the worst and will therefore only see the worst. And yet, history tells us that this ideology is not only morally bankrupt, but usually very unrealistic. And hope, on the other side, is a far more realistic choice to take. Consider here, however, hope isn't the promise of the universe that everything will be working out like this, but hope is our promise to the universe to root for the unlikely change, even when that very change is not even in sight yet. And with Antarctica, you find a continent whose sheer existence reminds us every single day. Why? The second lesson, we can't fix a system we don't understand. At some point in Antarctica, we were forced to hide in a shelter. A storm was coming, and this bay we were shielding in was so narrow, we couldn't use our water-making machine. That is a desalination system we would usually make. And suddenly we realized we had a bit of a water problem. 13 people on a small boat, what do you do? I, to that point, hadn't even thought about the water logistics. I was just using the tap, as you do. And overnight, all of us had to become experts in organizing water. I don't think we need to argue how many systems we need to fix in our world around us. But have we actually asked how they work? Have we looked closely to identify the real issue? And since nobody can know everything, have we asked someone who can explain to us exactly what is going wrong? When fighting for renewables, do we actually know how they work? And when wanting to convince someone who isn't yet on our side, have we actually asked them why they are standing where they are standing? Have we truly listened to someone who has more experience to us, and are we expecting everyone around us to know something we don't? In Antarctica, it took us 3 days to build a very comprehensive water management system, collecting rainwater with some pipes and some flowing things going to some glacier streams with some pots and pans. It wasn't elegant, but it didn't work out. And as a German on board, I proudly report that I was also in charge of making sure we were punctual in time for dinner. Standing there with freezing hands and carrying the buckets, I thought about how they say change travels in the speed of trust. This collective moment of water making, even in its simplicity, only worked because we trusted one another to know something we didn't. We trusted in our collective body to rise up to the occasion. And we realized that there's something in us that could be useful, even if the occasion we had to rise up was just really a bucket full of water. And number 3, action matters, but atmosphere does too. At some point during the mission, you imagine very rare showers because of the water saving, very cold hands because of the water situation, very windy and no mental health walk for anyone. At some point, I would say the atmosphere kind of dropped. We all had really important work to do, campaigns and data collection and sailing and navigation, and we were kind of getting on top of each other. And I, as an activist whose job it is to organize tens of thousands of people, I was almost offended by this. I bring entire movements to the street, but I struggled aligning 13 people on a boat. So the solution to this moment of difficulty didn't really come from any of the activists on board who knew how to organize people. The answer to our struggle came from that one French woman on our sailing ship that happened to know how to make the world's best crepes. And she also figured out that on any mission like this, there's a moment when only a crepe can help. None of this scientific data, the campaigns or where to start, could be done with French desserts alone, but they happen to be the missing link that none of us in this stream of work and pressure was able to see. And it was the banality of this that really stuck me. Change that goes far requires more than action. It requires the right conditions between the people. As we took to the streets in 2019, we would say unite behind the science, and I actually thought this was the most important thing to do. Looking back, I don't think it was the science that brought people to us, even though it is very nice to be scientifically on the right side. What brought people to us was the story we were telling, the energy we were bringing, this idea that you rise up to something intending to win big time. It was a rhythm we brought, and it was the fact that compared to the fossil fuel cynics on the other side, we were arguably very much the better party to be at. And more than that, we carried the knowledge that we don't need 1 million people to do the exact same thing. We need a strategy that excites millions of people to contribute in what they're good in. And that itself is quite a disruptive approach in misanthropic times. Of course, vibes aren't self-serving. They create collaborations that bring out the best in people. Imagine every single one of you in this room can do something that nobody else can do as well, or say, can do as interestingly. Every single one here, I'm 100% sure. But we rarely ask ourselves, what is the one thing I can actually do? Why don't we ask that? Because even environmental movements, we are captivated by a very specific idea of heroship, of solutions. Because even environmental movements, we kind of see that James Bond still saves the world the way he does in that one single car. Because we're so fixated on what we know that we lose sight of all the things we don't know. And sometimes these things are inside ourselves. After waving goodbye to Antarctica and taking very interesting lessons along, I waved goodbye to the ice, to the penguins and the whales, and I think the most important lesson, not for this stage, but of all, was the fact that right now we need people to organize big time for this planet and our collective future. And right now we see the most powerful people pretending that this planet doesn't even exist. So our big job overall is to refuse to lose our minds, to refuse to let go of that one planet. And if things get tough, do remember that there's a penguin somewhere out there right now, swimming like it's the best thing in the world. It's a penguin that counts on us every single day, and it's, after all, the Earth. That will be the one team that we will always be on, no matter what. So I propose, let's act like that. Thank you so much.
Amazing, well done, amazing. Amazing, Luisa, thank you so much for bringing the fire and the passion. I didn't have crepes and penguins on my bingo card for the collective action session, but I'm happy they came up. And I think that brilliantly set the scene and the context for this, about the conditions necessary for collective action. And to dive deeper into those conditions, I'd love to invite 3 brilliant movement builders onto the stage. Welcome Issey, Hikaru, and Sarah. Come up. Welcome, welcome. How are we doing?
Amazing.
Good. All right, so super quick fire intros first of all, and we'll start on this side with you, Sarah, and come around. So in like a minute or less, Sarah, co-lead executive of B Lab Global, the organization behind B Corp movement. They now have 10,000 B Corps with 1 million employees across them. Sarah, 1 minute, what's your connection to collective action?
That's quite an intro. Thank you very much. Yeah, so It's great to be here. That was a hard act to follow. Luisa, wherever you are, that was beautiful. Just thank you for kind of grounding us in that story. My name is Schwimmer. I'm the co-lead executive at B-Lab Global. As you've just heard, there are over 10,000 B Corps now around the world. That has tripled in size in just the last 5 or 6 years or so, which I think is important because we'll talk a little bit together today about momentum and what does it mean in this moment in different parts of the world. So over 10,000 B Corps where over 1 million people around the world work in over 100 different countries. So it's really lovely to be here. I'm really excited to be representing some of that sort of corporate behavior change work and to talk a little bit about the infrastructure of what we have seen really works in collective action.
Brilliant. We'll dive into that in a minute. Next up, Executive Director of Climate Cardinals, now mobilized 19,000 plus volunteers to do what? You tell us more, Hikaru.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Luisa, for the incredible opening. And it's such a pleasure to be here with you both, Sarah and Issey, and thanks so much, Nick, for moderating. My name is Hikaru Hayakawa. I am the Executive Director and the Founding Director of Climate Cardinals. We are a global youth-led climate education organization. We have 19,000 volunteers in 145 countries, and we are breaking language barrier in the climate movement so that every community can take action and protect their future. And so we started 6 years ago as a group of teenagers, and now this is my full-time job, and I get to be here with all of you, and I'm so excited.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hikaru. And next up, we have Issey Gladston, founder of the somewhat notorious meme page, Sexy Climate Change, and also head of social at Chile Digital Activism. Tell us more, Issey.
Just echoing what everyone said, thank you for having me today. I'm Issey. I'm a climate communications strategist, founder of Sexy Climate Change, head of social at Chile, which is a digital activism app, and I also run a 300-person book club in London called Hot House Book Club. Sexy Climate Change was born out of this idea that getting involved in climate doesn't have to be boring, it can be fun, it can be interesting. We have a podcast, I write a column for a fashion magazine in London, there's the meme page, we also do lots of free events with free drinks and DJs, which I think is actually very important to movement building, is dancing. So that's me.
Okay, brilliant. So we already heard crepes, free drinks. It doesn't have to be boring. We're already kind of going into the important, juicy stuff here, which is, I wanted to ask, what is your secret sauce? Like, what gets people involved in the collective action that you do, and what keeps them there as well? You touched on it a little there, Issey, so maybe let's start with you. What's the secret sauce at Sexy Climate Change?
Well, I think sometimes me having Sexy Climate Change and saying that things need to be fun rubs people up the wrong way, and they're like, but political education needs to be serious. This is a very serious issue. And I agree with that, but also I think sometimes you have to see onboarding people into movements like a sales funnel. So you're moving them down the funnel, and activism is like that too. Like, no one wakes up deciding that they want to be an organizer. Like, there's always something that brings you in. Like, the whole reason that I do activism is because I loved the Beyonce album, the self-titled one that came out in 2012, because that's how I learned about feminism. And then from that, I started to learn about the climate crisis and all different social justice issues. So I definitely keep that in mind with my events, and I try and make it fun and interesting. Recently we did one on the political power of music, and half the people came because they wanted to hear the climate stuff, and half the people came because they just liked the musicians who were on the panel. But by coming to the event, by meeting people, by seeing everyone who was there, these people started to learn more and more, and it might have been their first contact with the movement. So I think making things understandable, making them fun, and I also love humor because it holds the darkness and the difficulty of this space, but people leave your kind of communication not feeling too bogged down and scared. So yeah, that's probably everything from me on that front.
I saw you nodding a lot. That was resonating for you as well? What would you add?
No, definitely, and I love that answer. And I think when I think about what moves people, two things come to mind. The first is community, and the second is, as Luisa was sharing, opportunities for impact. And so, like as I shared, Climate Cardinals started as a group of teenagers. It was a high school project. We had $500. We were on Google Classroom, and we were just doing this because we saw an issue in our community, which is that most people don't speak English. The vast majority of climate information is only available in English. 6 years later, like these are some of the closest people I've ever met in my life, and we're in a loneliness crisis right now. And research shows that people who are civically engaged are more mentally resilient. And when you think about opportunities for impact too, there's so many people who do want to take action, and all of us in this room, we've been lucky enough to have a time or an opportunity in which like we did something and it changed things, and that's led us to this space to keep on doing it. But for a lot of people, they're living their day-to-day lives, or they haven't had that opportunity. And so for us, when we said, oh, you could translate climate information and take action, like that brought in so many young people who didn't necessarily feel represented in the climate movement, but realized that, oh, I speak another language, and so I can do something, and there's so many ways to get involved.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that, like the community, something also very close to my own heart, people coming back for the relationships that they build there. What would you add to that, Sarah? You talked a little about infrastructure also.
Yeah, I think you both said it so well. I think from the B-Lab standpoint, what we have really seen is also taking a lesson from the many, many, many social movements that have come before B-Lab, and understanding that social movements historically have worked best and have had the most, structural and sort of sustainable, lasting change when there has been a shared framework. So that does not mean that the movement needs to be monolithic. And I really appreciated what Luisa said just before this about not needing a million people doing the same thing, but needing millions of people bringing to bear what is best about each of us. So recognizing the need for diversity in a movement is something that we at B-Lab are trying to replicate and have done so and are seeing. So for us, when I talk about infrastructure, what I'm talking about, for those of you who aren't familiar with B-Lab, is that we are an economic social system change movement. And we have built standards for businesses that demonstrate what does good look like? How can a business perform in a way that does not just prioritize shareholders, but also prioritizes everyone here, everyone not here, our planet? And we have been around for about 20 years now. So I'm speaking as the elder on the panel. I'll just call it out, own my wisdom and my age. But B-Lab has been around for about 20 years, and in that time, we've seen this movement grow, and we've seen this movement move from a place where we were sort of laughed at, and the idea that business could be done a different way was absurd, to now proving that that is not only possible, but looking at, just like Issey and Hikaru are talking about, how do we continue to organize and leverage the power of this diverse movement? So I think for me, there's something really important in the joy, in the fun, in the creativity, in the shared humanity, and also in the shared framework, the shared tool that brings you all together.
Okay, cool. I think we're getting close to what's at the core of this. Something you mentioned there, I think, is really important in terms of the diversity of the movement, of it not being monolithic. I think many of us, we are still operating in bubbles to an extent. How do we burst those bubbles? How do we get the unusual suspects on board? What's the trick there? And whoever feels most called can take that answer first.
I'm happy to share. So this is something I've been thinking a lot about because, we are a global organization. We work with so many different communities, and of course, what's most important locally varies so much. And so there's this incredible book by this journalist, Candace Callison, and her whole argument is that we're asking the wrong question because we keep saying, like, look, the climate science is clear. Why don't more people care about climate change? And then what she actually argues is that what we should be asking is, how do people come to care about climate change? And so when you look at all these different communities, it's just incredible how many people have cared and bought into this movement. So she goes at the financial sector and she says, look, the financial sector has their own language, they have their own culture. They talk about climate in terms of climate risk. She goes to environmental evangelists in the US, and they talk about the climate movement in terms of Christianity and protecting God's creation. And so there's so many ways in which we can get people involved. And then also within our own work, there's so many people that I speak to them and they're like, there's a Sudanese activist I'd spoken to, and then she was like, the first time I heard about climate change, I was in my late 20s, and I just stumbled upon it on Google, and I realized that all these issues with the conflict was related to the climate, and then that's how she became a climate activist.
Feel free to bypass me here. Jump
Yeah, we don't
in.
need you. We don't need you. No, thank you for being here. I just wanted to build on that and say I think there's something really important about, again, like naming that and looking at appreciating that there needs to be and there is strength and diversity in a movement, and also recognizing where your people are or what is your issue, what brought you here. And so in the B-Lab movement, what we see this in a whole host of different ways. One example is what's known as the Be Beauty Coalition. So these are businesses that are all in the beauty space that are recognizing that they have shared challenges and may not be able to solve those challenges as individual businesses. So they're coming together. There is just recently launched a B Corp Coffee Collective. So I think there's something about recognizing that even within a really diverse big tent movement, finding where you have common ground and common sort of needs, in this case, business needs.
I think there's also a case for kind of co-benefits of climate action. I think to get to these different bubbles, I did a lot of research on the information deficit model, which is this idea that people have where they're like, oh, people just need to know more about climate. And it's like, that doesn't do anything. If it was going to work, it would have worked. But it doesn't. So instead, you have to think about, in the UK, we have a cost of living crisis. So a lot of our climate comms has become, actually, climate action makes your life cheaper. Or, like, I have a good personal story. Like, my dad is not into climate stuff at all. As much as I kind of shout at him about it, he's not listening. And he recently got an electric car because it goes very fast, and he likes driving fast. He got this one electric car, he loved it, and then he decided that he saw the other benefits of it, how it's cheaper, how it's more convenient, and he ended up getting electric cars for his business. And then he thought, oh, actually, it's cheaper if I put solar panels on the roof of my office to power these electric cars. So he kind of decarbonized his entire car fleet, not from the desire to decarbonize, but initially just because he wanted to speed, probably. So I think it's co-benefits I think you have to talk to people about instead of just ramming climate down their throat, unfortunately.
Love it.
I think our dads should meet. They sound very similar, so we'll have to connect them.
Okay, good dad solidarity. And shout out to Issey's dad. You can send him the video after his. Love that framing of co-benefits and of, just reframing this whole issue a little. And I like that we talked about the joy and the fun in movement building. I do also feel like we should name the moment we're in right now a little. So green lash, funding's cut, commitments rolled back, deliberate effort by people in power to make it feel like nothing we do does matter. Does that change how each of you are operating at all, or are you still going about business as usual?
Yeah, I can kick us off. So I live in Washington, D.C. in the United States. Very much experiencing a different sort of lifestyle right now than even a year ago. And so I do think we don't need to be naive. I think, as you say, we should name this moment. And I think we can also benefit from perspective and understand that this is indeed a moment. And looking at this work as being intergenerational, multi-generational, this is a relay race. And so I do think if you look again at the history of social movements, and I'll use an example in the United States where I'm from, we saw around the turn of the last century just a tremendous enclosure of wealth, monopolies, just reduction in civil rights. And within 10 years, because of a really diverse, sometimes very tense, not connected sort of body of movements, we saw changes in policies. We saw the expansion of voting rights. We saw the reduction and breaking up of monopolies. And we saw wealth inequality decrease. What we're seeing today, I think Issey's point around wealth inequality and your dad's sort of motivations needs to absolutely not be understated. As we see the connection between, in my country, the erosion of democratic norms and the rise of authoritarianism, we see the rollbacks in climate policy and investments, And we need to recognize that so much of this is rooted in tremendous wealth inequality, which is why I think that there is an incredible opportunity for us to continue to look to business leadership, which is exactly what we are doing, to lead and to say that we are actually going to continue to do the work. And what we've seen in the B Corp community is that business leaders, and these are individuals, even though some people like to think of companies as people, these are individuals making choices, that they are more committed than ever, and in a lot of ways are feeling that they are sort of built for this moment. And so not to be trite about it, but I do think that my perspective is that we don't want to waste this crisis and recognize that we have the opportunity to bring more people into this space because more people are feeling the challenges of the climate crisis and wealth inequality more acutely than ever.
Yeah, I think at a time at which so much of what we know, so many institutions, so many systems are being thrown out of the door, like this is also like one of our greatest opportunities to really take a step back and realize like how can we rebuild a world that's much more resilient and just than what we're experiencing, and like how prepared can we be for the moment in which the pendulum swings back, and then we have people who care about climate action and power, and like also how do we take advantage of situations like in New York where there have been people who are now in office who have the opportunity to prove that a pro-climate agenda is better for everyone. And I think that also thinking about movements too, we have a lot to learn from frontline communities and also the youth movement too, because in particular, when you think about funding, right, there's so many organizations and communities that have never had the funding, but they kept showing up. They changed so much. Even when you think about 2017 through 2019 and all the youth protests and youth organizing, like for the most part, that wasn't philanthropically backed. And look at what all of us accomplished. And so we have so much possibility, and it's just up on all of us to keep on going and keep our head in the game.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, the topic of not needing philanthropic funding, but being able to almost do it yourself and to meet this moment not with panic, but sort of resilience and resistance. Something that we do at Chile on the Digital Action app is we have a donation module or a supporter module where you can subscribe to your favorite activist like it's Substack. But what that actually means is that activists on the ground don't have to chase funding, like these big funding grants, and spend half their time doing a grant application. You can just kind of directly give them the resources that they need. And I think decentralized funding and small grants is something that we need to see a lot more of so that people can test out their ideas, see if it works, see if it doesn't work. Not too much reporting back, I think, would be great for this moment.
Brilliant. Yeah, highly recommend you download Chile, the app, and get involved, by the way. So what I'm hearing from you all is that big cracks in the system at the moment, but some light shining through them maybe, and in these dark moments is a good opportunity to reorganize and get more resilient. Bit of a wild card question now connected to that. I'd love to know in this time as we take stock, is there one player, could be a demographic or a type of organization that we underestimate as a potential force for good and that we could be tapping into more right now? Well, lots of looking at each other for this one.
I'm happy to go. And for me, I mean, I have to go back to our mission, of course, and there are only 400 million native English speakers in the world. 6.5 billion people don't speak English at all. 98% of climate information is only available in English, 98. And so there's so many people who have never actually been truly invited into this movement. And every day I feel so optimistic because, I wake up in the morning and I get an email, and then, one of our chapter, like Raj, our chapter lead in Nepal, has led disaster relief in different languages, or Joel, our chapter lead at Kampala International University in Uganda, has gone out into his community and led workshops for hundreds of young people on climate education. And even when you see civic engagement decreasing in the global north, like the places that are the future of the world, like Nepal, like Uganda, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, like they are building a real civic culture. Like you saw what happened in Nepal last year, that also inspired movements in places like Madagascar that didn't even show up in the news. And there's so much possibility in the rest of the world that is really leading climate action and resilience, and really needs to be invited into this global stage too.
Okay, awesome. Very beautifully put. So massive untapped potential in the global majority, non-native English speakers. Thank you for sharing. Sarah, you want to,
I love that, and that really resonates. And I just thank you for helping to make this a more diverse and inclusive space, and ensuring that we're not just inviting, but also, as you say, learning from people who know much more than those of us already here. I think my response would be nature in general is often left out of the conversation. And so I wanted to give like a couple really tangible examples of what including nature could actually look like. So we have a number of different examples of businesses, of B Corps that either have a person on the board who is designated to represent nature. So nature has a governance role, or has some sort of directorship role. And I wanted to name a specific country. Are any of you French by any chance? Seems like the likelihood is high. So there is a French B Corp called Narcisse. They put nature on the board, and their work has directly inspired a proposed French corporate law, which was just tabled at the National Assembly here this month. And this law seeks to give nature a voice as a union member, an investor, a shareholder. So I just want to name that as an example, because sometimes nature can seem, how do you put nature on the board? How do you represent that in corporate decision making? And some companies are already choosing and innovating on new ways to do that. That alone is pretty cool, yeah. But the coolest part to me is that this now is being debated here in this country in a policy level, right? So I think when we talk about collective action, sometimes we don't all get to live to see sort of the next step, or like what is the outcome of there. And the work is never done. But this is an example to me of that through line of when individual corporate people make choices to show that a different way of doing business is possible. It matters for that company, but it could matter for this entire country, depending on how this tabling goes. So, I wanted to offer those examples.
Love that. Super practical and local example. Thank you. Would you add, do you have an underestimated player other than your dad?
Well, actually, I was going to say, I do think that we are sort of underestimating the responsibility that middle-aged white men in power have, because so many of my friends are youth activists. They go into these companies, they spend an afternoon speaking, the company's ticked off their ESG or their CSR stuff. These old kind of white men say to them, oh, you've inspired me, I've got so much faith in the next generation to fix things. And it's like, but you're the one holding the keys to the castle. You're the one that could make a decision probably along B Corp lines that would change things tomorrow. So why do we have to wait 15 years for us to be in a position of power? Like, you guys can do it. So I think, annoyingly, we kind of, even though they are the center of everything, they do need to be brought in a bit more and put under pressure, I think.
Love that. Thank you. Feel like I want to decenter myself further now. Thank you so much for that very important reminder. We're kind of slowly wrapping up now, and I'm going to give you 1 minute exactly each to close this. And to close this, you can either choose what we need more of in collective action right now, or you can close it with a big call to action to the crowd. And we will go this way this time. So Issey, Hikaru, Sarah, and then we're out.
I think kind of building on Luisa's point from earlier, something that I find helps with the climate anxiety or the just general world panic is leaning on faith a bit more. Not faith in a God, but kind of faith that other people have also got this. Like, I think so often the response I get in my work is maybe it doesn't suit people and they're like, oh, your framing should be different. This isn't appropriate. I mean, I can't even say the tagline of the org on stage.
She really can't.
So, but there's always a pushback of people saying, oh, but you should be doing X, Y, Z. Like, this is how you should be doing it. And I think having faith that other people are running their own orgs, other people are communicating in that way, and I just need to carry on in kind of my path and my talents, and everyone else is on their paths and their talents, and they've also kind of got this, and we've all hopefully got each other. I think that's what we need more of.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love that. Something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is that, unfortunately, historically, very few people have been involved in social change. And so I studied the history of decolonization when I was in university, and a lot of the major leaders in decolonization, they all knew each other. In fact, some of them lived a block away in Paris, and they're all part of the same social clubs and everything. And there's a real need to democratize social change and to provide opportunities for everyone to get clear opportunities for everyone to get involved, and also to elevate and value the work that communities are doing that often is unrecognized. And I think as we look forward, I think also recognizing that amidst everything that's going on, there's still so much action that's happening in places in which we never look or never realize.
Thank you, Hikaru. Love that too. Thank you. Last word is yours, Sarah.
I mean, that's the way it should always be, I think. I think what I would just build on those two is what we cannot do is mistake complexity for rigor, right? So sometimes simplicity is right. Sometimes we already have the answers. And the reason that I raise that is that I think that there is, I mean, maybe to your point, Issey, there is this sort of narrative that I am seeing increasingly, which is, sometimes, the next generation will save us, or technology will save us, or whatever that looks like. We will save us, right? We will make choices to behave in ways that we know are aligned with our own values and what this planet requires of us and what we require of each other. And so I do think that for me, we don't need to be looking for more complexity. We need to be looking at what are the individual choices that we can make, and how do we find our people to then leverage those for more collective action.
Brilliant, love that. I even saw some clenched fists on the front row there on the "We will save us" line. Let's leave it at that. I think it's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Issey, Hikaru, and Sarah. Let's have a big round of applause for them. Yeah, and do we hug again, or what should we do? Well done, yeah. Well done. Well done. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you again for lifting the iceberg a little on the conditions for collective action. Next up, we have something a little different and a super special fireside chat. Usually the fireside chat is just with one person. Today we have two friends and two mobilizers with an incredibly inspiring and practical story to tell. I'd love to invite to the stage now Gabrielle and Célia. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome, both of you. How are we doing?
Great.
Yes. That is the energy we need. Célia, do you share that energy?
I do share that energy.
Okay, good. So, I'm going to love to first just do a very quick 1 minute or so intro from each of you. So Célia, first of all, made a brilliant film about climate in action, taking your own unengaged family. We've had a few family references on a road trip. Tell us a little more, 1 minute, what's your connection to collective action?
Well, I'm the movie director of In Action. It's a movie that asks the question why we know there is a climate urgency, but we don't act. And indeed, I took 3 members of my family, including my father and my cousin, on a family journey to understand how we can move towards climate action. And I've met with scientists all around the world to understand how we can collective action. So with Gabrielle, last summer, we were at the forefront of the second largest movement in France when signing a petition against a law that we'll talk about. So I'm glad that it's on stage now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And together with Gabrielle, head of partnerships at 2 Tons, and just brilliant content creator, influencer around climate, social justice. Tell us a little more about yourself too.
Thank you, Nick. So glad to be here. So what I like to say about myself is that I was an engineer student when, first of all, COVID crisis hit, and also Friday for Future, thanks Luisa, Extinction Rebellion, Greta Thunberg, Paris Agreement were kind of a big thing. So I got a lot of time to ask myself what I wanted to do after, and to ask myself what really is an engineer. And I came to the conclusion that an engineer is someone who has the ability to tackle the world's problem. And I think we can all agree that environmental crisis is one big problem that we need to tackle. So that's when I decided that I wanted to spend all my time fighting for the climate.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you. And we're happy that you did, because that brings us to one of many successes that you've had. We're going to talk for the next 15 minutes or so about a specific law and protest in France, the Duplon law. One of you, whoever feels most called, tell us first, set the scene. What was it? Why did it matter?
Okay, so we're back in 2024. The right-wing Senator Laurent Duplon proposed the bill. In his word, it was to facilitate the farming practices. In reality, it was only to facilitate a small percentage of the fields, and also it aimed to reintroduce a pesticide, the acetamiprid, which is known to be a big killer and also really bad for our health. Sorry. So right after that, lots of NGOs such as Extinction Rebellion, Polinis, On est prêt, Génération Future, Food Watch, they did a big amount of work. We owe them a lot. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. They did a lot of work to raise awareness about that law and what it meant for us for about a year. And then we're back in summer 2025, when Laurent Duplon and his allies found a little trick to pass the law. So what they did was a vote of no confidence against their own law because they were afraid of the opposition. We had such strong arguments against that. So the law was voted in the council without a public debate in the National Assembly, which we should have had. And the mood when it passed was like we were outraged because we have felt robbed from this debate, and we called that a democratic hijack.
Okay. Good that you had that outrage. And then there was a spark. Célia, there was but this wasn't all started by one of the big NGOs or something. It was rather more, tell us how that spark formed.
Sure, so we're back in mid-July 2025, and there is a student called Eleonore Pattery who published on the National Assembly website a petition against this law. And we saw that within a few days, it was already a little spark, so a couple of hundreds of signatures. And then one morning I received on a WhatsApp group a message sharing this petition, and since I publish regularly online on social media with Gabrielle, I thought, okay, let's share this petition online. And it turns out that it was a huge surprise because within 2 days the post on LinkedIn had 200,000 viewers, and we went from the petition went from 5,000 signatures to 25 signatures. So within 2 days, we multiplied by 5 the number of signatures. And I think that's also where it took off because I think it was the snowball effect. So it was already shared by micro-influencers like me, like Gabrielle on LinkedIn, and then some big influencer in the ecology bubble like Piot shared it, and it was a huge effect. And then some stars like Pierre Ninet, who is a French actor that you probably know of, shared it as well. So there were many, it went from really a small bubble to outside of the ecological bubble. So I think that was also a big success because for the first time in history, we were able to go out of the ecological bubble when talking about ecology.
Yeah, and this is a really important thing, isn't it? So it became a bipartisan issue. 60% of right-wing voters also supported this. What was the secret there? What was the trick?
Yeah, the thing about that petition is that it went cross-party real quick, and we can think of a few reasons for that. The first one is that a petition is something quite easy to do. I mean, people are willing to sign petition because it does not expose yourself as much as, I don't know, protesting or doing activism, for example. Also, the petition Eleonore wrote was broad enough to touch anyone in a way that was important to them. And I can think of two specific topics. The first one is democracy. Well, it's a well-known fact that French people do not really trust the politicians, but they do trust democracy. And I think that the petition was a way for them to express their voice because they did not have the debate they wanted and they should have had. So the petition was a way to raise their voices. Also, the second topic is the health, because I don't know any one of you, but I'm sure that we have one thing in common, is that we want to grow old and in good health. That's the same for everyone, and so people did not sign the petition for the bees, sorry for that, but they signed the petition because it was important for the health. And I think that's when we burst out of the ecological bubble. It's when we made the petition and the pesticide topic about the health.
Yeah, thank you. And going back to that co-benefits argument from the last conversation, anything you would add to that?
Sure. I think the fact that it was on the National Assembly website made it really official because we had to sign up with our ID. So I think that was also a big thing. And at some point, the petition became really catchy. I think French people discovered for the first time this mechanism that once a petition reached 500,000 signatures, there is a debate on the National Assembly that has to be taking place. So I think that was really catchy to achieve this number. And once we achieved this number, we thought, okay, let's go to 1 million, 1 million for the sample. And when we reached 1 million, we said, okay, let's make history and make it the first largest petition signed in France. And the number was 2.3 million for the history of the largest signed petition in France. And we made it to 2.1 million for the Duplon petition.
Let's give them a round of applause for that. Yeah.
And it's not only us, it's the 2.1 million who signed the petition.
Of course. Anyone in the room who signed that petition, who you know? Oh, wow. Okay, nice.
Also, I think that NGOs has been paving the way and understand, sharing the issues a lot.
Yeah. And back to the initial warm-up that I did, this is almost 3.5% of France that signed this petition in the end. Tell us what's happening with it now, because the petition is one thing, the debate in the National Assembly is maybe another. What's going on now?
So what's going on now? I think it raised a lot this topic in the public space, and what we saw, for example, in Germany back in 2018 after the Fridays for Future movement, scientists studied it and they saw that there was a lot of change in consumption, in social norm, and in environmental policies after this. So I think we can expect in the following years much more topics about this, and there was a study published by Parlons Climat, an NGO research group in France, that say that 80% of French people worry about the pollution of their food. So I think this number would never be as much as high if we didn't have this petition. And 90% of us agree that we should cut pesticides by half by 2030. So I think this will have much more impact than we think.
Okay, so it's not just about the petition itself, but the awareness, the mobilization around it, whatever happens legally. Do you have confidence in the law itself, the sustainability of that, or is there going to be more sneaky tricks to bring it back?
Well, the Senator, Laurent Duplon, is trying to have another bill about this, taking sneak peeks to actually pass the law. So we'll see how it goes. More to come.
Okay, so it's not over yet, the fight. Yeah.
But we're ready.
Okay, good. You look ready. Okay, so as we wrap this up slowly, but I think one of the most important things here, and that you've already mentioned in our preparation call, you have a bit of a gift to the audience and to other people who want to mobilize on issues like this. What would be your tips, tricks that you would share, what you've learned from this with other people doing similar mobilizations? And you can both go, build on each other.
So the first thing I want to share is that I don't believe in backlash. I showed my movie in 150 events in the last year, and I met with thousands of viewers, and everyone shared the same concern about ecology. But however, I think there is a problem of the narrative and how we talk about ecology. We need to understand that no one acts out of zero interest, and people, they have an interest in acting. So we need to find ways to actually connect people with ecology and to find what interests them. There is a great study published by researchers that show that there are topics like health, like local roots, like protection of nature, heritage, relationship with those topics are the key talking points when talking about ecology. And we need to remove the word ecology because it's cleaving and more talking about health. And I think especially in France, there is a huge consensus that we need to connect health with ecology. And I think that's also what the Duplon law was about, health, food, and going against pesticide.
Okay, so thinking how we can make those connections, health, ecology, stop using ecology even, interesting. Okay, thank you. What would you add, Gabrielle?
If anything to steal from our campaign, I would say two things. The first one is we need to understand that people don't have time. They don't. They have lots of things to do. They have lots of information as well, too much information. So we need to facilitate the action at its maximum. During the Duplon campaign, I built a little toolkit on the website page, with simple message to copy paste and send to your friends, family, and also a link to the petition and flyers to give to people. The easier the action, the more people are willing to involve with. Also, I would say that we need to keep the dialogue going because, what you say is that we have a big polarization in France, especially on the environmental topic, and we need to keep talking to people because there is always a way to touch them about ecology. I would say that for the last years, we've been trying to get people to involve with ecology, sometimes maybe forcing them to engage. However, I think that now what we need to do is to bring ecology to people.
Oh, nice ending point there. Thank you so much. Where can people find the campaign website, the toolkit?
It's on the Notion Notion website, and you can find it on my LinkedIn page.
Okay. Follow Gabrielle on LinkedIn.
And follow Célia as well.
And Célia too, yes. So, as we wrap this up now, 23 seconds, what's your closing sentence message to the audience on collective action? One each, one sentence.
I didn't prepare for this.
It's better to be unprepared
Okay,
sometimes.
I can go if you want to. You have some time to think about it.
That's good friends looking out for each other.
Yeah. So, regardless of anything that happens in the legal stuff, what gives me hope about the Duplon action is that people were aware of this topic and they are aware now and they are ready to take action. They know the link between food, agriculture, health and ecology, and that's the main point. So we can have hope.
We can have hope. Thank you.
No, there is no backlash, but we just need to find different narratives around ecology.
Beautiful. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
both
Nick.
of you. Thanks. You killed it. Thank you. So, quick before you escape, 1 second. First, I'd like to show a re-show of hands who feels slightly less paralyzed than you did at the start. Who feels a little more hopeful? Okay, good. I think that's okay. And can we have the crazy people at the front again? Protest. And this time, the rest of you join them. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.